Hello everyone, and welcome back to When She Broke Us channel. Today, we have an incredible story, one that's dark, emotional, and shocking. It's a story about betrayal, humiliation, and the kind of heartbreak that leaves scars you can't see. We're sitting down with a man whose story will take you through a whirlwind of emotions, and I promise you, this is one you won't be able to look away from. From the first moment, through the betrayal, to the shocking aftermath, this is raw, unfiltered truth. So sit tight, make sure you're not alone for this one, and hear it straight from him. Let's start at the beginning. Can you tell us your name and a little about yourself, and then share your story with us?
I heard every word she said, every syllable of hate, every whispered desire to leave me. The strange thing was, I was standing right there, close enough to reach out and touch her, but Sarah had no idea I could hear her. She didn't know I was there at all. Let me back up. My name is David Chun, and I'm a software architect for a mid-sized tech company in Portland, Oregon. I'm 35 years old, and I've been married to Sarah for 8 years. Good years, I thought. The kind where you settle into comfortable patterns. Sunday morning pancakes, Friday night movies on the couch, inside jokes that nobody else would find funny. We weren't the couple who posted constantly on social media about our perfect life, but we were solid. Or so I believed. I'm the kind of person who notices things. It's part of my job, seeing the flaws in code, the vulnerabilities in systems, the patterns that don't quite match. Maybe that's why what happened that Tuesday afternoon in March hit me so hard. I'd missed all the signs. The day started normally enough. I left for work at 7:30 a.m., kissed Sarah goodbye as she stood at the kitchen counter in her yoga pants and my old college sweatshirt. Her dark hair pulled into a messy bun. She smiled at me. That same smile I'd fallen in love with 9 years ago at a mutual friend's barbecue. "Love you," she said, and I echoed it back, already mentally running through my morning meetings. The downtown office where I work is a typical tech space. Open floor plan, standing desks, a coffee bar that tries too hard to be hip. My team was in the middle of a major product launch and I'd been pulling long hours. Maybe that was part of it. Maybe I'd been too distracted to see what was right in front of me. Around 2 p.m., I realized I'd left my backup hard drive at home. It had the documentation for a client presentation scheduled for the next morning. Something I absolutely needed. I texted Sarah to ask if she could drop it off, but she didn't respond. After 20 minutes, I decided to just run home and grab it myself. The commute was only 15 minutes, and I could work from home for the rest of the afternoon. I pulled into our driveway at 2:47 p.m. I remember the exact time because I glanced at my car's dashboard clock, calculating whether I could still make it back for the 4 p.m. stand-up meeting. Sarah's white Honda was parked in its usual spot, which explained why she hadn't responded. She was probably in the shower or had her headphones on. I used my key to enter through the front door, and that's when I noticed the first odd thing. Sarah's laptop was open on the dining room table, facing away from the entrance. The screen was on, displaying what looked like a video call. I could hear her voice coming from somewhere deeper in the house. The kitchen, I thought. "I can't keep doing this," Sarah was saying. Her voice had a quality I'd rarely heard, raw, almost desperate. "It's killing me, living this lie. He doesn't deserve this." I froze in the entryway, my hand still on the doorknob. "You know I hate him now," she continued. Her words felt like physical blows. "I wake up every morning and feel sick. I can't look at him without feeling disgusted with myself. I want to leave. I need to leave." My mind went blank. Then it started racing. Him? Who was she talking to? My best friend Marcus? Her coworker James? Who she'd mentioned a few too many times lately. I felt my pulse in my ears, a rushing sound that threatened to drown out her words. I know, Sarah said, responding to someone I couldn't hear. "But what if he finds out? What if someone tells him? I can't. The guilt is eating me alive. I should have announced myself. I should have walked in and confronted her right then. But I couldn't move. I stood there, 5 feet from the dining room, listening to my wife confess to hating me, to someone I couldn't see. That's when I noticed the second odd thing. The angle of her laptop. It was positioned so that its camera faced the kitchen doorway. I could see Sarah's reflection in the dark TV screen mounted on the opposite wall. She was standing at the kitchen counter, staring at her phone, occasionally gesturing as she spoke. She was having this conversation on her phone, not through the laptop. But the laptop was on a video call. I could see a face on the screen, a woman's face actually watching silently, not a man. A woman I didn't recognize, maybe in her 50s, with short gray hair and glasses. Nothing made sense. "I can't do this anymore," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "I'm going to tell him tonight. He deserves to know the truth, even if it destroys everything." The woman on the laptop screen nodded but still didn't speak. She seemed to be just observing. I heard Sarah take a shaky breath. "What if he never forgives me? What if I lose him completely? But I can't. I can't keep pretending everything is fine when I'm falling apart inside." Every instinct screamed at me to burst in, to demand answers. But something held me back. The wrongness of the situation. The woman watching on the laptop. The fact that Sarah kept saying him, but I still didn't know who she was talking to. I backed up slowly, quietly, until I was outside the front door again. My hands were shaking as I closed it silently behind me. I sat in my car in the driveway, staring at nothing, trying to process what I just heard. My wife hated me, wanted to leave me, was living a lie, planning to tell me, tonight, something that would destroy everything. The reasonable part of my brain, the part that debugs code and solves problems, started working through possibilities. An affair was the obvious answer. But with who? And why was that older woman on the video call watching silently? A therapist, maybe? But therapists don't usually just observe. They interact, ask questions. I looked at my phone. No missed calls, no texts. I pulled up Sarah's location on the Find My Friends app we'd shared for years. One of those couple things that seemed cute and practical when we set it up. It showed her at home, exactly where she was. I scrolled back through the past week. Home. Work. Home. The gym on Tuesday and Thursday. Home again. Nothing unusual. No unexplained trips. No suspicious patterns. I opened Instagram, feeling like a cliché, but desperate for clues. Sarah's last post was from 4 days ago. A photo of her morning coffee with the caption, "Grateful for the little things, hot beverage sparkles," 300 likes. A dozen comments telling her how #blessed she looked. Marcus had liked it. So had her sister Emily. Her coworker James had commented, "Looking good. Miss working with you on the Morrison project." James. That comment felt loaded now. Looking good. Was that innocent? Or was I reading into everything? I called Marcus. He answered on the third ring. "Hey man, what's up? Can I ask you something?" My voice sounded strange to my own ears. "Sure. You okay? You sound weird. Has Sarah seemed different to you lately? When you guys have talked?" There was a pause. Different how? I mean, I haven't really talked to her much. Last time I saw her was at your place for game night, 2 weeks ago. She seemed fine. Normal. Why? No reason. Just, never mind. "David, what's going on?" "Nothing. I gotta go." I hung up before he could press further. My mind was spinning. I needed information, but I didn't know what questions to ask or who to ask them. I decided to go back inside. I would act normal, see if Sarah said anything, watch for any tells. I'd spent 8 years learning to read her moods, her expressions. Surely I could figure out what was happening. This time, I made noise as I entered, keys jangling, door closing firmly. "Sarah? I'm home. Forgot my hard drive." She appeared from the kitchen almost immediately, and I studied her face. She looked tired. There were shadows under her eyes I hadn't noticed that morning. Or maybe I had noticed but hadn't paid attention. How many details had I been missing? "Hey," she said, smiling, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I thought you had that big meeting this afternoon?" "Yeah, but I need the drive with the documentation. It's in my office." "Oh, right." She was clutching her phone in her right hand. I noticed. Had she just been on it? Was she texting someone? The mysterious person she'd been talking to? I walked past her toward my home office, hyper-aware of every movement, every breath. In my peripheral vision, I saw her glance back toward the kitchen, where her laptop was probably still open, still on that video call with the silent woman. My office is small, barely more than a converted closet with a desk and some shelves. I grabbed the hard drive from where I'd left it, but I didn't leave immediately. Instead, I opened my laptop and pulled up our joint credit card statement. If Sarah was having an affair, maybe there would be evidence. Strange charges, hotels, restaurants we hadn't been to together. I scrolled through the past 3 months. Nothing jumped out. Groceries, gas, her gym membership, the usual streaming services. A charge from Powell's Books for $47.23. Dinner at our favorite Thai place. I remembered that night. It was our anniversary. Nothing suspicious. Then I saw it. A recurring charge I didn't recognize. $150 every 2 weeks to something called Mindful Pathways LLC. I Googled it quickly. It was a therapy practice. Sarah was seeing a therapist. My first reaction was relief. The woman on the laptop made sense now. She was Sarah's therapist, and Sarah was having some kind of therapy session. But then the words I'd overheard crashed back. I hate him now. I want to leave. I'm going to tell him tonight. Was she in therapy because of me? Because she wanted to leave me? Was the therapist helping her work up the courage? Did you find it? Sarah called from the living room. Yeah. Got it. I closed my laptop and emerged with the hard drive. She was sitting on the couch now, her laptop closed on the coffee table. Her phone was face down next to her. She looked up at me, and for a moment, something flickered across her face. Fear? Guilt? Sadness? Couldn't tell. You okay? I asked, trying to sound casual. You look tired. Just a long day, she said. You heading back to the office? Actually, I think I'll work from home the rest of the afternoon. That cool. Another flicker of emotion. Definitely fear this time. Oh, I'm sure. Of course. I was going to go to the gym in a bit anyway. The gym. Her Tuesday and Thursday routine. Was that true? Or was it a cover for meeting someone? Okay, I said. I'll be in my office if you need me. I set up in my office but couldn't focus on work. Instead, I found myself Googling things I never thought I'd search. Signs your wife is cheating. How to catch a cheating spouse. Why would someone tell their therapist they hate their husband? The advice was all the same. Look for changes in behavior, emotional distance, unexplained absences, changes in appearance or habits. I tried to think back over the past few months. Had Sarah changed? She'd started going to the gym more regularly. That had been back in January. She said she wanted to get healthier, lose the weight she'd gained over the holidays. That seemed reasonable at the time. Now it felt sinister. She'd been on her phone more. But everyone was on their phones all the time. That wasn't unusual. She'd been quieter, maybe less chatty about her day. But she'd started a new position at work in December. More responsibility, more stress. I'd attributed her tiredness and distraction to that. Had I been blind? Or was I seeing patterns where there were none, because I was looking for them now? I heard the front door close, Sarah leaving for the gym. I waited 30 seconds, then came out of my office. Her laptop was still on the coffee table. I knew her password. We'd always been open about that kind of thing. No secrets, we'd said. What a joke. I opened it. The video call application was closed now, no history visible. I checked her email, nothing obviously incriminating. Work emails, newsletters, a confirmation for a dentist appointment next week. I opened her text messages on the laptop. They synced with her phone. Most were with her sister Emily, mundane stuff about their parents' upcoming anniversary party. A few with her friend Rachel about getting together for brunch. One from her boss about a project deadline. Then I saw a text thread with an unsaved number. The most recent message, from that number, sent just 15 minutes ago. Same time Thursday? We need to talk about what happens next. My heart stopped. Sarah's response, sent 12 minutes ago. Yes, I'm ready, I think. There it was. Evidence. Same time Thursday. What happens next? She was meeting someone, planning something. I screenshotted the conversation and texted it to myself. then deleted the text from Sarah's messages so she wouldn't see that I'd sent it. My hands were shaking. I needed to know who that number belonged to. I copied it and ran it through a reverse phone lookup site. The result came back: James Morrison, Portland, Oregon. James, her coworker, the one who'd commented "looking good" on her Instagram post. Everything clicked into place. The late nights she'd been working, the Morrison project James had mentioned, the way she'd started dressing a little nicer for work, even though she'd claimed it was because of her new management role. I felt sick, actually physically ill. I barely made it to the bathroom before throwing up. When Sarah came home from the gym an hour later, I was back in my office, pretending to work. She knocked on the door frame. "Hey, I'm going to take a shower. Then I'll start dinner. Pasta okay?" "Sure," I managed. I listened to the water run, imagined her in there, thinking about him. James Morrison, planning their future together, planning how to tell me tonight that she was leaving. I wasn't going to wait for that. I couldn't sit through dinner, making small talk, pretending I didn't know. I needed to confront this now. When she came out wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, her wet hair combed back, I was standing in the living room. "We need to talk," I said. Her face went pale. "About what?" "About James Morrison." The color drained from her face completely. "David, how long?" I asked. My voice was shaking. "How long have you been fucking him?" "What? I'm not. Don't lie to me." I pulled out my phone, showed her the screenshot of the text messages. "Same time Thursday? We need to talk about what happens next." "What does that mean, Sarah? What happens next? You leave me? You move in with him?" She was staring at the screenshot, her expression unreadable. Then, to my complete shock, she started laughing. Not happy laughter, bitter, almost hysterical. "Oh my God," she said. "Oh my God, David. You think?" She couldn't finish. She was laughing so hard, tears streaming down her face. "What the fuck is funny about this?" I demanded. "James Morrison," she gasped between laughs. "James Morrison is 63 years old. David. He's my boss. And he's gay. Very, very gay. He's been with his husband for 20 years. I felt like I'd been slapped. "But the texts are about my promotion," she said, her laughter dying. "There's an opening for senior director. James has been mentoring me, helping me prepare for the interview. What happens next is whether I get the position and what that means for my career." "But I heard you," I said desperately. "This afternoon, you said you hated him, that you wanted to leave, that you were living a lie." Sarah's face transformed. The brief amusement vanished, replaced by something that looked like pain. "You were here? You heard that? I came home to get my hard drive. I heard you on the phone, talking to someone. And there was a woman on your laptop watching." "Dr. Chun," Sarah said quietly. "My therapist." "I know. I saw the charges. But Sarah, you said—" "Sit down," she interrupted. "Please, just sit down." We sat on opposite ends of the couch, the place where we'd spent countless evenings watching TV, reading, just being together. It felt like there was a canyon between us now. "I'm not having an affair," Sarah said. Her voice was steady now, but I could see her hands trembling. "I've never cheated on you. Never even thought about it." "Then what? Let me finish, please." She took a deep breath. "The him I was talking about today, David, it wasn't you." I stared at her. "Then who?" "My father." The world tilted. Sarah's father, Robert, was someone we saw at family gatherings but never talked about much. He lived in Seattle with Sarah's mother, Patricia. They seemed like a normal suburban couple, boring, even weekly golf games and bridge clubs. "I don't understand," I said. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "When I was 13, my father had an affair. A long one, almost 2 years. My mother found out and they went to therapy, worked through it, stayed together. I was never supposed to know. They hid it from Emily and me. But I found out anyway. I overheard them fighting one night, heard everything. Sarah, I never told anyone. she continued. Not Emily, not my friends, not you. I just carried it. This secret knowledge that my father was a cheater, that my mother had forgiven him, that our whole family life was built on this lie. And it ate at me. For years. But I pushed it down, convinced myself it didn't matter. It was their business. Their marriage. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Then in December, something happened. My mom called me, upset. She thought Dad was having another affair. Some late nights, some secret phone calls. She asked me to talk to him, to feel him out. Since Emily lives in Boston and I'm close by. Did you? I did. And David, he broke down. He confessed that he'd been struggling with depression, that he'd been seeing a therapist without telling my mom because he was embarrassed. He wasn't having an affair. He was having a mental health crisis and didn't know how to talk about it. I still don't understand what this has to do with. It brought everything back, Sarah said. All that old pain, that old betrayal. And I realized I'd been carrying this hatred for my father for over 20 years. I'd been pretending to have a normal relationship with him while seething inside. Living a lie. Every family dinner, every holiday, I'd sit there and act like everything was fine while hating him for what he'd done. For breaking our family, even if he glued it back together. She turned to face me fully. That's who I was talking about today. The him I hate. The lie I've been living. I've been seeing Dr. Chun since January, trying to work through these feelings, trying to decide if I should tell him how much his affair affected me, even after all these years. That's what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to drive to Seattle and talk to him. Tell him the truth. What happens next? From James's text. That was just unfortunately timed. He has no idea about any of this. I sat there trying to absorb it all. The relief was so intense it made me dizzy. She wasn't leaving me. She didn't hate me. But underneath the relief was something else, shame. I jumped to conclusions, violated her privacy. Assumed the worst. I'm so sorry, I said. Sarah, I'm so... Why didn't you just ask me? She interrupted. Why didn't you come in this afternoon and say, hey, I overheard something that worried me. Why did you go through my laptop, my texts? I panicked. I heard you say you hated him and wanted to leave, and I just assumed it was about you? She shook her head. David, do you know how narcissistic that sounds? Not everything is about you. I've been going through something really difficult, dealing with trauma from my childhood, and you made it about you. The words stung because they were true. You're right. I should have just talked to you. Yes, you should have. She stood up. I need to go. I told my dad I'd be there by 7 p.m. We're going to have this conversation, finally, after 22 years. Do you want me to come with you? No. This is something I need to do alone. She grabbed her keys and her purse. At the door, she paused. David, we need to talk more about this. About trust. About communication. But right now, I need to focus on this conversation with my dad. Of course. I love you. She looked at me for a long moment. I love you too. But love isn't always enough, is it? Sometimes you need trust too. And respect. And I'm not sure how I feel about you going through my private things. Then she was gone, and I was alone in our house, feeling like the world's biggest asshole. I sat there for a long time, replaying everything in my head. The conclusions I jumped to, the evidence I twisted to fit my narrative. I've been so sure I was right, so convinced that I was the victim in some story about betrayal. But I'd been wrong. Completely, utterly wrong. Or had I? Something nagged at me, a detail that didn't quite fit. I pulled up the screenshot of the text messages again, staring at them. Same time Thursday? Thursday was gym day for Sarah. Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork. But I'd reverse searched the number, and it had come back as James Morrison. Except, James was her boss. Why would he be texting from his personal phone about a work promotion? Why not use work email or at least text from his work number? I opened my laptop and looked at the reverse phone lookup result again. This time, I noticed something I'd missed before. It listed James Morrison as being 42 years old. Sarah had said her boss James Morrison was 63, and gay, and married to a man for 20 years. Was there another James Morrison in Portland? Had to be. It's not an uncommon name. I ran a Google search. James Morrison, Portland, Oregon. Dozens of results. A lawyer, a dentist, a real estate agent, a college student, a jazz musician. I clicked on the real estate agent. James Morrison, 42 years old, specializing in residential properties in the Portland metro area. I stared at his photo on his company website. Dark hair, strong jaw, athletic build. Attractive, objectively speaking. My stomach dropped. I looked at his recent sales page. 3 months ago, he'd sold a condo in the Pearl District. 2 months ago, a house in Selwood. Last month, a townhouse in my own neighborhood, just 4 blocks away. I pulled up Sarah's location history again, but this time I went back further. 3 months, for months. And there it was, a location I didn't recognize, an address in the Pearl District. She'd been there on a Thursday afternoon in December, around 2 p.m. The address of the condo James Morrison had sold. I checked her gym's location. It was nowhere near the Pearl District. To get from our house to her gym, you'd go east. The Pearl was west, in the opposite direction. More lies. Different lies. The story about her father might be true, probably was true. But there was something else, something she hadn't told me. I called Marcus again. This time I didn't hold back. I need you to tell me the truth, I said when he answered. Has Sarah said anything to you? Anything about us having problems? Or about meeting someone, or anything unusual? Dude, you're freaking me out. What's going on? Just answer the question. No, she hasn't said anything. But David, I haven't really talked to her much lately. Maybe you should ask Emily? They're close. Emily, Sarah's sister. I had her number from family events, but we'd never really had one-on-one conversations. I texted her, "Hey Emily, it's David. Can you give me a call when you have a chance? It's important." She called within 2 minutes. Is Sarah okay? Did something happen? She's fine. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Has Sarah talked to you about anything I should know about? There was a pause. Too long of a pause. Emily? David, I don't think I should. Please. Is she having an affair? Another pause. Then, quietly, I don't know for sure, but I think something might be going on. My heart was pounding. Tell me. She called me about a month ago, really emotional. She said she'd made a huge mistake, that she'd done something terrible, and she didn't know how to fix it. I asked her what, but she wouldn't say. She just kept crying and saying she was a horrible person. Did she mention anyone named James? No, she didn't mention any names. But David, I got the impression that, I don't know, that maybe she'd been with someone. The way she was talking about it, about ruining everything, about not being able to take it back. It sounded like she'd cheated. I thanked Emily and hung up, my mind reeling. So Sarah had lied to me after all. The story about her father might be true, but there was more to it. She'd done something terrible. She'd been to that condo in the Pearl District. She'd been texting with a 42-year-old real estate agent named James Morrison. I looked at the text messages again. We need to talk about what happens next. What if what happens next wasn't about a promotion? What if it was about Sarah leaving me for him? About them starting a life together? I needed more information. I pulled up the white pages online and found a listing for James Morrison at an address in Northwest Portland. Not the Pearl District condo that must have been a sale, not his residence. I knew what I was about to do was crazy, probably illegal, definitely pathetic. But I had to know. I drove to the address, a modern apartment building near the Brewery District. I parked across the street and waited, feeling like a stalker. It was 6:45 p.m. Sarah would be in Seattle by now, talking to her father. Or would she? Maybe that was a lie too. Maybe she was with James Morrison right now. At 7:15 p.m., a man emerged from the building. I recognized him from the website photo. James Morrison, real estate agent, 42 years old. He was wearing jeans and a casual button-down, talking on his phone. He walked to a Tesla parked in a nearby spot, got in and drove away. I followed him, I don't know why, I just did. Followed him through the streets of Portland, maintaining a safe distance, feeling increasingly unhinged. He drove to a restaurant called Clyde Common, a popular spot downtown. He parked and went inside. Through the window, I could see him join someone at a table, a woman. Blonde, probably in her late 30s. They kissed when he arrived. Not a friendly kiss. A romantic kiss. So James Morrison had a girlfriend. Which meant what exactly? That he was seeing multiple women? That Sarah was the other woman? I sat in my car outside the restaurant watching them through the window. They looked happy, comfortable, like a couple who'd been together a while. My phone rang. Sarah. Hey! I answered, trying to sound normal. I'm at my parents' house, she said. She sounded emotionally drained. The conversation, it was hard, really hard, but necessary. I think we got somewhere. Dad and I. That's good. I'm glad. Are you okay? You sound weird. I'm fine, just tired. What time will you be home? Probably around 10. I'm gonna spend a little more time with my mom. She wants to talk too. Okay. Drive safe. David. Her voice softened. I really do love you. And I'm sorry I didn't tell you about all this earlier. About the therapy, about my dad. I should have been more open. It's okay. We'll talk when you get home. But as I hung up, I knew it wasn't okay. Because I'd seen her location history. I'd seen the texts with a man named James Morrison. And now I'd followed that man to dinner with his girlfriend. Nothing made sense. I drove to the address in the Pearl District where Sarah's location history showed she'd been in December. It was a modern condo building, all glass and steel. I walked into the lobby trying to look like I belonged there. There was a directory on the wall, listing units and resident names. I scanned it, looking for anything familiar. And then I saw it, Unit 407 Morrison, J. And Morrison, K. K. The blonde woman from the restaurant? I stood there, staring at the directory, trying to piece it together. And then a voice behind me said, "Can I help you?" I turned. A young woman, maybe mid-20s, wearing scrubs like she'd just come from a shift at a hospital. She was looking at me with polite curiosity. "Oh no, I was looking for a friend's unit," I said. "Which friend? James Morrison?" "Oh, he moved out a couple months ago. He and his wife bought a house in West Lynn." His wife. So the blonde wasn't just a girlfriend. "Right, of course," I said. "I forgot he mentioned that. Thanks." I left the building, my head spinning. James Morrison was married. Had sold this condo. Had moved to West Lynn with his wife. So why was Sarah at this address in December? I sat in my car and did something I probably should have done from the start. I Googled James Morrison Real Estate Portland, along with reviews. What I found changed everything. James Morrison Real Estate had dozens of reviews, and they were almost all from women. Happy customers, praising his professionalism and his ability to find them the perfect home. One review, from a woman named Jennifer, caught my eye. "James helped me through the hardest time of my life, getting divorced and finding a new place. He was so patient and understanding." Another review. "After my separation, I needed to find something quickly. James Morrison understood what I was going through and found me the perfect fresh start condo." I scrolled through more reviews. A pattern emerged. James Morrison specialized in helping women through transitions. Divorces, separations, life changes. Women who needed a fresh start. And then I understood. Sarah wasn't having an affair with James Morrison. She was looking at real estate. She was planning to leave me, and she'd contacted a real estate agent to help her find a new place. The texts made sense now. Same Time Thursday wasn't about secret meetups. It was about property showings. Real estate agents often work evenings and weekends. What happens next wasn't about starting a life with him. It was about what happens after Sarah found the right place. How she'd tell me. How she'd leave. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. This was worse than an affair. An affair could be forgiven, worked through. But Sarah was planning to leave me. Methodically, deliberately. She'd been searching for apartments, preparing her exit strategy. And the story about her father? Maybe it was true. Maybe it was a convenient distraction. Or maybe both things were true. Maybe she was dealing with her father issues while also planning to leave her marriage. I drove home and waited. She arrived at 10:15 p.m., exactly when she'd said she would. Her eyes were red from crying. "How'd it go?" I asked. "It was good. Hard but good. We talked about everything. The affair, how it affected me, why I never said anything." He cried. My mom cried. I cried. "But I think we're going to be okay." "That's really good, Sarah. I'm proud of you for having that conversation." She smiled tiredly. "Thanks. I'm exhausted. I'm going to take a quick shower and go to bed." I watched her walk toward the bathroom. This woman I'd loved for 8 years. This person I thought I knew. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her about James Morrison. I wasn't going to tell her I knew about the real estate search. I was going to wait and see what she did. If she was planning to leave, she'd tell me eventually. And when she did, I'd be ready. But as I lay in bed that night, listening to her breathe beside me, one more thought occurred to me. What if I was wrong again? What if there was another explanation for all of this? I'd been wrong about the affair with James Morrison. Wrong about the text messages. Wrong about so much already. What if I was wrong about this too? Thursday came. Sarah went to the gym at 2 p.m., like always. I told my team I had an appointment and left work early. I drove to the gym and parked where I could see the entrance. Sarah's car was there. So she was actually at the gym. But would she stay? I waited. At 2:45 p.m., she emerged in her workout clothes, clearly having actually worked out. She got in her car and drove away. I followed, keeping my distance. She didn't go home. Instead, she drove to a coffee shop on Hawthorne, a trendy place with exposed brick and local art on the walls. I parked down the street and watched her go inside. Through the window, I could see her order something at the counter, then sit at a table near the back. She pulled out her laptop and started working. Just working. No one joined her. No secret meeting. I felt ridiculous. What was I doing? Following my own wife around like a private investigator? I was about to leave when a man approached her table. My stomach clenched. But then I saw Sarah's face. Surprise, not recognition. The man was asking if the chair across from her was taken. She shook her head. He took it. And they went back to ignoring each other, two strangers sharing space in a crowded coffee shop. I drove home, feeling more confused than ever. That evening, Sarah was quiet. She made dinner, the pasta she'd mentioned before, and we ate mostly in silence. The comfortable silence we used to share had become something else. Something heavy. "David," she said finally, pushing her half-eaten food around her plate. "I need to tell you something." Here it was. The moment she'd been building toward. My heart raced. "I've been thinking a lot lately about our marriage," she continued. "About us. About where we're going. About what we both want." "Okay," I managed. "And I realized that I haven't been fair to you. I've been distant, distracted. I've been dealing with my own stuff and not letting you in. That's not what marriage is supposed to be." "Sarah, let me finish." She looked up at me, her eyes intense. "I want to be honest with you about everything. Complete transparency. No more secrets." "Okay. I've been looking at apartments." There it was. The truth. I braced myself for what came next. "Not for me," she said. "For my dad." I blinked. "What?" After our conversation on Tuesday, after he opened up about his depression and therapy, my mom told me something else. She told me that she's been thinking about leaving him. After all these years, after forgiving the affair, after everything. She's thinking of ending it. Not because he cheated again, but because she's realized she never really forgave him the first time. She's been carrying that pain for 22 years, just like I have. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. And I realized that's what I've been afraid of. That's why I've been in therapy, why I've been so anxious. I've been terrified that we'd end up like them. That some mistake, some hurt, would fester between us until it poisoned everything. But we're not. I know, we're not. But David, my anxiety about it has been making me pull away from you. And that's not fair. So I've been helping my dad look for a place. just in case my mom goes through with it. That's who James Morrison is. A real estate agent my coworker recommended, who specializes in helping people through difficult transitions. I felt like the world's biggest idiot. Again. I went to see a condo with my dad in December, she continued. That's why I was in the Pearl District. He was too embarrassed to go alone, afraid he'd run into someone he knew. And today, I was supposed to meet James to look at a few more places, but my dad canceled last minute. He and my mom are going to try couples therapy instead. So I just went to the gym and then to the coffee shop to catch up on some work emails. She reached across the table and took my hand. I'm sorry I've been so secretive about all of this. Felt like family drama I didn't want to burden you with. But I see now that by keeping it from you, I created distance between us. And that's exactly what I was afraid of. I sat there, holding her hand, feeling the weight of my own suspicions, my own invasion of her privacy. I should have felt relief, should have felt joy that everything was okay. But something still nagged at me. Sarah, I said carefully, when you called Emily last month, you told her you'd made a terrible mistake, that you'd done something you couldn't take back. Her face went pale. Did you talk to Emily? I called her, after I overheard you on Tuesday. I was trying to understand what was happening. She pulled her hand away from mine. You called my sister? Asked her about me behind my back. I was scared. You thought I was cheating on you? So you interrogated my sister? Her voice was rising. Jesus, David. What else did you do? Go through my phone? Follow me around? I couldn't answer. Couldn't admit to the full extent of what I'd done. Oh my God, she said, reading my silence. You did. You actually followed me. Sarah, I'm sorry, No. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. No, this is insane. You completely invaded my privacy because you heard part of a conversation out of context and jumped to the worst possible conclusion. Do you know how that feels? To know that you don't trust me? That you'd rather spy on me than just ask me what's going on? I'm sorry, I said again, standing up too. You're right. I should have just talked to you. But Sarah, you never answered my question. What did you tell Emily? What was the terrible mistake? She laughed bitterly. You want to know? Fine. The terrible mistake was telling my father how I felt about his affair. Because even though it was honest, even though it needed to be said, I knew it would hurt him. I knew it would bring up old pain for my mom. And I felt guilty about that. I felt like I was destroying something that had survived for 22 years, even if it was built on shaky ground. It made sense. Perfect sense. And yet, I need some air, Sarah said. She grabbed her keys and walked out, leaving me standing in our dining room, surrounded by the ruins of our dinner. I heard her car start, heard her drive away. I stood there for a long moment, then did something I'd been avoiding. I called James Morrison's business number. A professional voicemail picked up. You've reached James Morrison Real Estate. I'm either with a client or away from my desk. Please leave a message and I'll return your call within 24 hours. I hung up and called again and again. On the fourth call, someone picked up. Hello, a woman's voice. Oh, hi. I'm looking for James Morrison. This is his business line. Can I help you? I'm his wife, Karen. I sometimes handle calls when he's busy. I was hoping to ask about a property he showed in December. A condo in the Pearl District. There was a pause. In December? Honey, James sold that building in November. He hasn't shown anything there since then. My blood ran cold. Are you sure? Positive. That was one of his listings and it sold before Thanksgiving. Is there something else I can help you with? No. No, thank you. I hung up. Sarah had lied. Or James Morrison's wife was lying. Or there were two James Morrisons. Or, my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. I'm staying at Rachel's tonight. We both need space. I texted back. Okay. I love you. No response. I sat down at my laptop and started digging. Really digging. I pulled up county property records, searching for any property sales in the Pearl District in December. There were 3. None of them involved James Morrison as the agent. I searched Sarah's location history again, zooming in on the exact address. It wasn't the condo building I'd gone to. I'd been looking at the wrong building. The address was actually a medical complex. A medical complex with multiple offices. I looked up the directory online. Suite 407, Portland Women's Health Associates. Oh God. The pieces rearranged themselves in my mind, forming a picture I'd been too blind, too paranoid to see. Sarah had been to a women's health clinic in December. And then she'd told her sister she'd made a terrible mistake, something she couldn't take back. My hands were shaking as I Googled the clinic. It offered various services, including reproductive health, cancer screenings, and pregnancy care. And pregnancy termination. Had Sarah been pregnant? Had she terminated a pregnancy without telling me? I called her. It went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I texted, "Sarah, please call me. It's important." No response. I drove to Rachel's house, a small bungalow in the Alberta Arts District. Sarah's car was in the driveway. I knocked on the door. Rachel answered, her expression frosty. "She doesn't want to talk to you right now, David. Please, I need to ask her one thing. Just one thing." "No, you've done enough. Leave her alone." "Were you pregnant?" I called past Rachel, hoping Sarah could hear me. "In December, were you pregnant?" Rachel's face changed. She looked back over her shoulder, then at me. "You need to leave. Now. Just tell me, please. Was she pregnant?" "That's not your business," Rachel said, starting to close the door. "I'm her husband. How is it not my business?" The door stopped. Sarah appeared behind Rachel, her face streaked with tears. "Yes," she said quietly. "Yes, I was pregnant." The world stopped spinning. "And before you ask," she continued, her voice hardening, "no, I didn't terminate it. I wanted to. I made an appointment, I went to the clinic, I sat in the waiting room. But I couldn't do it. I walked out. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was going to. I was trying to figure out how. But then," her voice broke, "then I had a miscarriage. 8 weeks. While you were at that conference in San Francisco." I remembered that conference. 3 days in January. Sarah had seemed off when I got back, tired and pale. She'd said she had the flu. "I was alone," she continued, bleeding and cramping and terrified. I called Emily, who told me it was probably normal, but I should call my doctor. I did. They said if it got worse, come to the ER, but that early miscarriages are common. So I stayed home, and I dealt with it alone, because you were giving your presentation to a room full of people who thought you were brilliant. "Sarah, why didn't you call me?" "I would have come home immediately." "Because I hadn't told you about the pregnancy." How was I supposed to say, "Hey, come home. I'm having a miscarriage of a baby I never told you we were having." And the truth is, David, part of me wondered if I'd caused it. If the universe was punishing me for even considering termination. The therapist says that's irrational, but that's how I felt. How I still feel sometimes. Tears were streaming down my face now. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have been there." "Yes, you should have. But you weren't because I didn't tell you because I was scared and confused and didn't know what I wanted. And that's on me. That's my terrible mistake. Not the miscarriage, but not trusting you enough to tell you about the pregnancy in the first place." "Is that why you've been in therapy?" "Partly. The grief, the guilt, the complicated feelings about it all. And then it brought up all the stuff about my dad, about trust and betrayal and secrets in relationships. It all got tangled together. I wanted to go to her, hold her, but Rachel was blocking the doorway, and Sarah wasn't moving toward me. "Why did you lie about James Morrison?" I asked. "About him showing you properties?" "I didn't lie. He is a real estate agent. I did text him asking for recommendations for my dad. But I never saw any properties with him. I made that part up just now because I was embarrassed. Because the truth is that I've been paralyzed lately. I can't make decisions. I can't commit to anything. I've been helping my dad look for places online, but every time we make a plan to actually see one, I cancel. Because if my parents split up, it feels like it confirms all my worst fears about marriage." She wiped her eyes. And I've been terrified that you'd see how messed up I am and leave. That losing the baby was some kind of sign that we shouldn't have kids, that I shouldn't be a mother. So I kept it all inside, went to therapy, tried to work through it alone. Which I realize now was the exact wrong thing to do. I wouldn't leave you, I said. Sarah, I love you. Nothing you could tell me would make me leave. Really? Because you thought I was having an affair based on overhearing half a conversation. You went through my phone, tracked my location, followed me around. That doesn't exactly scream trusting husband. She was right. I'd been so focused on my fear of betrayal that I'd betrayed her trust. You're right, I said. I screwed up. Massively. And I'm sorry. But Sarah, we can fix this. We can go to therapy together, we can… I need time, she interrupted. I need space to think about whether I can forgive you for not trusting me, for going behind my back, for calling my sister and probably everyone else in my life, trying to find evidence of something that wasn't happening. I understand. Do you? She shook her head. I don't think you do, because from where I'm standing, you turned our marriage into a crime scene. You investigated me like I was a suspect, and maybe I wasn't completely honest with you, but I never doubted you. I never questioned your loyalty or your love. Can you say the same? Couldn't. That was the worst part. Couldn't. I'll give you space, I said finally. As much as you need. But Sarah, please know that I love you. And I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me. Both in January and now. She nodded but didn't say anything. Rachel gently closed the door, and I stood there on the porch, feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. I drove home and sat in our empty house. Our home, full of memories and inside jokes and shared history. 8 years of life together, seemingly destroyed in 1 week. I thought about everything that had happened. Every assumption I'd made, every wrong conclusion I'd jumped to. I'd been so certain I was the victim in some story about betrayal, but maybe I was the betrayer. The one who'd broken trust, who'd violated privacy, who'd assumed the worst instead of the best. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Hey man, Sarah just called me. Told me some of what happened. Wanna grab a beer and talk? I texted back. Not tonight. Thanks though. Another buzz. This time from Emily. I'm sorry I told you about the phone call. I didn't realize Sarah hadn't told you about the miscarriage. I feel terrible. I replied, not your fault. I put you in an impossible position. I sat there in the darkness, thinking about Sarah alone in that house, dealing with a miscarriage, thinking about her at the women's health clinic, paralyzed with indecision, thinking about her carrying all that pain and fear while I sat at my standing desk, worried about product launches and client presentations. How had I missed it all? But I knew how. I'd been so wrapped up in my own world, my own work, my own assumptions about our comfortable life. I'd stopped really seeing her, really asking her how she was beyond the surface level. I'd taken her for granted. And when I'd finally noticed something was wrong, instead of approaching it with love and concern, I'd approached it with suspicion and paranoia. I pulled out my laptop and started writing an email to Sarah that I wasn't sure I'd send. But I needed to get the words out. Dear Sarah, I've spent the past hour sitting in our house, thinking about everything, and I realize that I owe you more than an apology. I owe you the truth about why I reacted the way I did. The truth is, I was scared. I've been scared for a while now, though I didn't recognize it until this week. Scared that I'm not enough for you. That you'll wake up one day and realize you married someone boring and predictable. Someone who works too much and doesn't notice when his wife is struggling. My parents got divorced when I was 12. I never told you how ugly it was. How my dad came home one day and announced he was leaving for another woman. How my mom fell apart. How I spent years watching her try to piece her life back together. I swore I'd never let that happen to me. I'd never be the kid whose dad chose someone else. I'd never be blindsided like my mom was. But that fear turned me into exactly what I didn't want to be. It made me paranoid. Made me see betrayal where there was only pain and confusion. Made me investigate you instead of supporting you. You lost a baby, and I didn't even know you were pregnant. That's not your failure, that's mine. That's me being so checked out, so absorbed in my own world, that I didn't see my wife struggling with an impossible decision. And then, when you had to go through a miscarriage alone, I was at a conference, giving a talk about system architecture to people whose names I don't even remember. That's unforgivable. I understand if you need time. I understand if you're not sure you can forgive me. But please know that I'm going to spend however long it takes becoming the husband you deserve. The one who asks instead of assumes, who trusts instead of investigates, who shows up when you need him. I love you, Sarah. Not the perfect version of you I'd imagined, but the real you, the complicated, struggling, imperfect person who's been dealing with more than I could see. And I'm sorry it took me so long to really see you. Yours, David. I read it over 3 times, then deleted it. It felt self-serving somehow, like I was trying to make myself feel better more than actually helping her. Instead, I texted, "I'm here when you're ready. No pressure." 2 hours later, she texted back, "Thank you." 2 words, but they felt like hope. The next morning, I called Dr. Chen's office. The receptionist told me they only took appointments through referrals. I explained that my wife was a patient and that I wanted to set up couples counseling. "I'll have Dr. Chun call you back," she said. Dr. Chun called that afternoon. Her voice was kind but professional. "Sarah mentioned you might call. She's given me permission to speak with you, which is good. It means she's open to working through this." "Is she okay?" I asked. "I mean, as okay as she can be?" "That's something you should ask her directly. But I will say this. The fact that you're calling shows you're taking this seriously. That matters." We scheduled our first session for the following week. In the meantime, Sarah stayed at Rachel's. We texted occasionally, nothing deep, just logistics about bills and a dentist appointment she had scheduled. On Sunday morning, she texted, "Can we meet for coffee? I think we should talk." We met at a neutral place, not the coffee shop on Hawthorne or anywhere we'd been together. A Starbucks halfway between Rachel's house and ours. She looked tired when she walked in, but she managed a small smile. We got our drinks and sat in a corner booth, the sounds of espresso machines and indie music filling the awkward silence. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Sarah said finally. "About us, about what happened, about what I want." My heart was in my throat. "Okay. I'm angry at you, David. I'm hurt that you didn't trust me. But I'm also angry at myself for not being honest with you, for keeping you at arm's length while I dealt with everything. You had every right to process things your own way. Maybe. But I'm also realizing that I've been using my trauma about my dad as an excuse to avoid being vulnerable. Every time things got hard, I'd pull away instead of leaning in. That's not healthy. That's not fair to you." She took a sip of her latte, organizing her thoughts. "The miscarriage messed me up more than I want to admit. Not just the physical part, but the emotional part. The guilt about considering termination. The grief about losing something I didn't even know I wanted until it was gone. The fear that maybe I'm not meant to be a mother." "Sarah, let me finish, please." She took a breath. "I should have told you about the pregnancy immediately. Should have let you be part of that decision, that process. Instead, I tried to handle it alone, and that wasn't fair to either of us. And when I lost the baby, I convinced myself it was better that you didn't know. Less painful for you. But really, I was just protecting myself from having to be vulnerable. I wish I'd been there," I said quietly. "Me too. But you can't change the past. Neither of us can. We can only decide what we do now. What do you want to do?" She looked at me for a long moment. "I want to try. I want to go to therapy together. I want to learn how to trust each other again. Both of us, because this goes both ways. I want to figure out if we can get past this." "I want that too," I said, relief flooding through me. "More than anything. But David, I need you to understand something. If we're going to make this work, you can't ever invade my privacy like that again. You can't track my phone or read my messages or follow me around. If you're worried about something, you have to talk to me directly. Can you promise me that?" "I promise. Absolutely. And I need to promise you something too. No more secrets. No more handling things alone. If something's wrong, I'll tell you. Even if it's hard. Even if I'm scared. We're supposed to be partners, and I haven't been treating us that way. I reached across the table and took her hand. She didn't pull away. Can I come home? I asked. Not yet. I think we need a little more space before we jump back into living together. But soon. After a few therapy sessions, maybe. Okay, whatever you need. We sat there for another hour, talking more honestly than we had in months. About the miscarriage, about her father, about my parents' divorce and how it had shaped my fears. About work stress and communication and all the little ways we'd been failing each other without realizing it. When we left, she kissed me. Just a brief kiss, nothing dramatic. But it felt like forgiveness. Or at least the possibility of it. Our first therapy session with Dr. Chun was hard. She asked difficult questions, made us confront uncomfortable truths. But by the end, I felt like we'd made progress. Like we were finally on the same page. Sarah moved back home 2 weeks later. It was tentative at first, both of us being extra careful around each other. But slowly, we found our rhythm again. New rhythms, actually. Better ones. We started having weekly check-ins, where we'd sit down and talk honestly about how we were feeling. No accusations, no assumptions, just honest conversation. Felt awkward at first, but it got easier. Sarah told me more about her relationship with her father, how they'd had several more conversations, each one helping her process the old betrayal, how her parents had decided to stay together and work on their marriage, which gave her hope for us. I told her about the insecurities I'd been carrying, the fear of abandonment I'd never really dealt with. We both realized we'd been protecting ourselves at the expense of our marriage. 3 months after that horrible Tuesday afternoon, we were sitting on the couch watching TV. Something we'd done 1,000 times before, when Sarah paused the show. I've been thinking about something, she said. My stomach clenched instinctively. Old habits. It's nothing bad, she said quickly, reading my expression. Actually, it's something good. At least, I think it is. Okay. I've been thinking about trying again. Getting pregnant. But only if you want to. And only if we're in a good place. I looked at her. This woman I'd almost lost through my own paranoia and her own fear. Are we in a good place? She considered it. I think so. Not perfect. But stronger than we were before. Then yes, I said. Let's try. She smiled, that real smile I'd fallen in love with. Okay. But this time we do it together. No secrets. No secrets, I agreed. As I lay in bed that night, Sarah asleep beside me, I thought about everything that had happened. How close we'd come to destroying something good because of fear and mistrust. How easy it would have been to let it all fall apart. But we hadn't. We'd fought for each other, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. The story I'd been telling myself about betrayal and affairs and being the victim had been wrong. The real story was about 2 imperfect people, both carrying their own trauma, both struggling to be vulnerable. It was about how fear can poison love if you let it. And it was about how, sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is trust. Trust your partner, trust yourself, trust that you can survive the hard conversations. I never told Sarah about following James Morrison to that restaurant, or about calling his wife. Some things I decided were better left unsaid. Not secrets, just private recognitions of my own capacity for paranoia. Reminders to myself of who I didn't want to be. Sarah still sees Dr. Chun every other week. I've started seeing a therapist too, working through my parents' divorce and how it shaped me. We still do couples therapy once a month, maintenance sessions to keep us honest. Her parents are doing better. Her father joined a men's support group for depression. Her mother started painting again. Something she'd given up years ago. They're not perfect, but they're trying. Just like us. Sometimes I think about that Tuesday afternoon, standing in the entryway, hearing Sarah say she hated him and wanted to leave. How my mind immediately made it about me. How I turned her pain into my paranoia. I'm grateful now that I was wrong. Grateful that the story was more complicated. More human than my fears had imagined. Grateful that we both chose to fight for each other instead of giving up. Because the truth is, marriage isn't about never having problems. It's about how you handle them when they come. It's about choosing each other, again and again, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. 6 months after that awful week, Sarah took a pregnancy test. We waited together this time, sitting on the bathroom floor, holding hands. When the second line appeared, we both cried. Happy tears this time, mixed with fear and hope and love. We're doing this together, she said. Together, I agreed. And we were. Every doctor's appointment, every milestone, every moment of joy and anxiety. Together. Our daughter was born on a Thursday morning in April. We named her Hope. Seemed fitting. As I held her in the hospital, watching Sarah sleep exhausted in the bed, I thought about all the ways our story could have ended. The tragedy we'd barely avoided. The trust we'd almost destroyed. But we hadn't. We'd survived. More than survived, we'd grown. And as Hope opened her tiny eyes and looked at me, I made her a promise. I would be the father who showed up, who trusted, who communicated, who didn't let fear poison love. I would learn from my mistakes. Sarah stirred, waking up. Is she okay? She's perfect, I said. Just like her mother. Sarah smiled. That smile I'd seen on a Tuesday afternoon when I thought I was losing her. The smile that had saved us both. Come here, she said, making room in the bed. I climbed in carefully. Hope nestled between us. Our little family. Imperfect but real. Broken once but healing. And in that moment, I understood something I'd been too afraid to see before. The opposite of betrayal isn't perfection. It's honesty. It's vulnerability. It's choosing to trust even when it's terrifying. It's love. Messy, complicated, hard-won love. The kind worth fighting for. But that's not where this story really ends. 3 weeks after Hope was born, on a quiet Sunday afternoon while Sarah napped and the baby slept in her bassinet, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, David Chen. A man's voice, older, unfamiliar. Yes, my name is Robert Patterson. I'm Sarah's father. I sat up straighter. Sarah and I had talked about when to introduce Hope to her parents. We decided to wait a few more weeks until Sarah felt stronger. Oh, hi, Robert. Is everything okay? That depends on your definition of okay. His voice was tight, controlled. I need you to come to my house. Alone. Don't tell Sarah. My stomach dropped. What's this about? Just come. I'll text you the address. If you care about your wife at all, you'll be here in an hour. He hung up before I could respond. I stared at the phone, my mind racing. Don't tell Sarah. The words echoed with warning. But we'd promised no more secrets. The text came through. An address in Seattle, along with, come alone. This is about protecting Sarah. I looked at my sleeping wife, at our newborn daughter. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, a test, something wrong. But another part of me, the part that had learned nothing from the past 6 months, was curious. Worried. I left a note. Went to grab some supplies. Back soon. Love you. The drive to Seattle took 90 minutes. I spent the entire time trying to convince myself to turn around, to call Sarah, to be honest. But Robert's words kept playing in my head. If you care about your wife at all. The house was a typical suburban home. 2 stories, well-maintained lawn, a minivan in the driveway. I knocked on the door. Robert answered immediately, as if he'd been waiting by the window. He was tall, gray-haired, probably in his early 60s. He looked like Sarah around the eyes. Come in, he said curtly. I followed him into a living room that looked like it hadn't changed since the 1990s. Floral couches, family photos on every surface. I spotted a young Sarah in several of them, smiling at the camera. Sit, Robert said, not sitting himself. He stood by the fireplace, his arms crossed. Where's Patricia? I asked, looking for Sarah's mother. At her sister's. This conversation is between you and me. He fixed me with a hard stare. Sarah told me what happened, what you did, how you tracked her, invaded her privacy, assumed the worst of her. My face burned. I know. I made terrible mistakes. But we've worked through it. We're in therapy, You made her doubt herself, he interrupted. Made her feel like she couldn't trust her own husband. Do you have any idea what that does to a person? especially a person who'd just gone through a miscarriage. I know, and I've apologized. I'm still apologizing. I'm spending every day trying to be better. Are you? He stepped closer. Because from where I'm standing, you haven't changed at all. You drove up here without telling Sarah, keeping secrets again. Old habits. You told me not to tell her, and you listened. You chose to deceive her rather than being honest. Again, he shook his head. That's exactly my point, David. When push comes to shove, you choose paranoia and secrets over trust and honesty. I stood up, anger rising. Why did you call me here? To lecture me? To tell me I'm not good enough for your daughter? Because I already know I made mistakes. I'm working on it. We both are. I called you here because Sarah doesn't know the whole truth about me, Robert said quietly. And before you build your life with her, before you raise that baby, you need to know what I know. He walked to a desk in the corner and pulled out a folder. Sarah thinks I had one affair 22 years ago. 2 years, one woman, my mother found out, we went to therapy, we moved on. He opened the folder. That's not the truth. He handed me a stack of papers. Receipts, hotel bills, credit card statements, text message printouts, all dated over the past 5 years. I've been having affairs our entire marriage, Robert said flatly. The one Sarah knows about wasn't the first, and it wasn't the last. There have been 7 women over 30 years. Patricia knows about all of them now. That's what my depression really was. Patricia finding evidence of the latest one and threatening to leave. The therapy I'm in? It's for sex addiction. I stared at the papers, unable to process what I was seeing. Why are you telling me this? Because Sarah idolizes the idea that we worked it out. That therapy and honesty saved our marriage. She's building her hope for her own marriage on that foundation. But it's a lie. We didn't work it out. Patricia stayed because she was afraid to be alone, and I stayed because divorce is expensive. He took the papers back. And now Sarah's convinced that because we're trying, because we're going to therapy, that means love can overcome anything. But that's not true. Sometimes love isn't enough. You're wrong, I said. Sarah and I are nothing like you and Patricia. I made mistakes, but I would never what? Never betray her trust? You already did. You tracked her phone, read her messages, followed her around. That's betrayal, David. Maybe not sexual, but betrayal nonetheless. He sat down heavily on the couch. I'm not trying to destroy your marriage. I'm trying to save my daughter from years of pain. If you can't trust her, if you're always going to be looking for evidence of betrayal, then you need to let her go now. Before that little girl upstairs gets attached. Before Sarah wastes another 8 years on someone who doesn't trust her. I felt sick. Does Sarah know about all of this? No. And I'm not going to tell her. Not yet. She just had a baby. She doesn't need this right now. But eventually, yes. Patricia wants honesty finally after 30 years. So Sarah will learn the truth. That her father is a serial cheater. That her mother stayed anyway. That everything she believed about our marriage was a lie. It'll destroy her. Maybe. Or maybe it'll free her to stop repeating our patterns. Stop using our broken marriage as a template for her own. He looked at me directly. Can you honestly tell me you'll never doubt her again? Never check her phone when she's in the shower? Never wonder where she really is when she's late from work? I wanted to say yes. Wanted to promise I'd changed. But standing there, in that living room full of lies and family photos, I wasn't sure. I love her, I said finally. I love Patricia too, Robert said. Didn't stop me from hurting her over and over again. Love isn't the question, David. Trust is. And can you really trust someone when you've already proven you don't? I drove home in silence, my mind spinning. Robert was right. I'd kept this meeting secret. Had justified it by telling myself it was to protect Sarah. But really, I'd been curious. Had wanted information. Had chosen secrets over honesty. Again, when I got home, Sarah was awake, feeding hope. She looked up and smiled. Hey, did you get the supplies? I stood in the doorway, looking at my wife and daughter. I could keep this secret. Could pretend the meeting never happened. Could continue building our life on the foundation of carefully curated honesty, telling most of the truth, most of the time. Or I could risk everything by being completely honest. I didn't go for supplies, I said. Your father called, asked me to come to Seattle, alone. He told me not to tell you. Sarah's face changed. What? I sat down next to her and told her everything. Robert's call, his ultimatum, the folder full of evidence, his confession about the multiple affairs. I watched her face crumble as the foundation of her hope, her parents' recovered marriage, revealed itself as a carefully constructed lie. All this time, she whispered, all this time I thought they'd overcome it. That love and therapy had fixed everything. I'm sorry, I said. Why are you sorry? You didn't do this. He did. She stood up, pacing with hope in her arms. God, I've been so stupid, using their marriage as proof that ours could survive. But they didn't survive, they just persisted. In misery. Sarah, he's right, you know, she said, turning to face me. About you. About the secrets. You proved it today by going there without telling me. I told you as soon as I got home. Because you felt guilty. Not because you wanted to be honest from the start. She kissed Hope's head, tears streaming down her face. I don't know if we can do this, David. I don't know if I can spend my life wondering if you trust me. And I don't know if you can spend your life trying to trust someone you already decided to doubt. I can change. I am changing. Are you? Because today proved you're still the same person who tracked my phone and interrogated my sister. You just hid it better this time. She handed Hope to me and walked toward our bedroom. I need some time alone. I sat there holding our 3-week-old daughter, watching my wife disappear into our bedroom, and realized that Robert had been right. Not about everything, but about this. Trust, once broken, is almost impossible to fully repair. You can say the right things, go to therapy, make promises. But when the moment comes to choose between honesty and self-protection, between trust and doubt, you reveal who you really are. And I had revealed myself today, still choosing secrets, still justifying it. That night, after Sarah finally came out and we put Hope to bed in silence, I made a decision. I think we should separate, I said. Sarah looked up from her phone, shocked. What? Not divorce. Not yet. But I think we need real space. Your father was right. I haven't really changed. I'm still keeping secrets, still choosing fear over trust. And that's not fair to you. So you're leaving? Her voice was flat. I'm saying that maybe we rushed back together. Maybe therapy and good intentions aren't enough. Maybe I need to actually do the work of becoming someone who can be trusted before I ask you to trust me. She was quiet for a long moment. Where would you go? Marcus has a spare room. Or I could get a short-term rental. We'd still co-parent Hope together. See each other regularly. But not live together. Not pretend everything's fine when it's not. For how long? I don't know. 6 months? A year? However long it takes for me to prove to both of us that I can be the person you deserve. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Or maybe it's just the beginning of the end. Maybe separation is just divorce in slow motion. Maybe, I admitted. But I'd rather know now than waste years of your life while you wait for me to change and I keep making the same mistakes. She wiped her eyes. I hate that you're right. Me too. We sat there in the darkness of our living room, our daughter sleeping peacefully upstairs, completely unaware that her parents were falling apart. Okay, Sarah finally said. Okay, if you think that's what we need. I moved out the following weekend. Marcus helped me pack, not asking too many questions. Sarah was civil but distant, focused on Hope. The separation was supposed to clarify things, supposed to give me time to work on myself to prove I could change. Instead, it just hurt. Living alone, seeing Hope only 3 times a week, watching Sarah build a life that didn't include me. But something else happened too. Without the daily performance of being fixed, I actually started to confront my real issues. The childhood trauma, the abandonment fears, the need to control situations to prevent being blindsided. I went to therapy 3 times a week, joined a men's group, Started reading about attachment theory and trust and how to actually change patterns instead of just promising to. 3 months into the separation, Sarah called. "Can we talk?" We met at a park, Hope bundled up in her stroller. We walked in silence for a while, watching the autumn leaves fall. "My dad told my mom that he told you," Sarah said finally. "She called me, upset. So I know you know about all of it now. All the affairs. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing for things that aren't your fault." She stopped walking, turned to face me. "I've been thinking a lot about patterns. About how I chose you because you seemed safe. Stable. The opposite of my father. I am stable. Mostly. But you're also suspicious and paranoid and terrified of abandonment. Just like my mom. So maybe I was recreating the pattern after all. Just from the other side." She smiled sadly. "We're both broken, David. Both carrying damage from our parents' marriages. The question is whether two broken people can build something whole, or if we just cut each other on our sharp edges. What do you think?" "I think." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I think I love you, and I think you love me, but I also think love was never our problem. Trust is, and I don't know if we can fix that. I'm trying. I really am. I know. I can see it. The therapy, the work you're doing. But David, here's what I've realized. I don't trust you either." I stared at her. "What?" "I don't trust you not to hurt me again. Not to spiral into paranoia the next time I'm going through something hard. I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop. For you to accuse me of something I didn't do. That's not trust. That's just managing damage." She was right. I could see it in how carefully she texted me, always explaining where she was and who she was with. How she volunteered information before I could wonder about it. She was protecting herself. "So where does that leave us?" I asked. "I don't know. Maybe we need more time. Maybe we need to accept that sometimes love isn't enough. Maybe we need to figure out how to co-parent Hope without destroying each other in the process." We walked in silence again, both of us lost in our own thoughts. "I saw my dad last week," Sarah said eventually. "Told him that I knew everything. That I was furious with him for lying. For using me to make you doubt yourself. For manipulating both of us." "How did he react?" "He cried. Said he was trying to protect me from making his mistakes. I told him that his mistake wasn't the affairs, it was the lies. The years of deception. And that by lying to me about it, he just created more lies for me to deal with. That was brave. It was necessary." She looked at me. "And I need to be brave with you too. David, I don't think I'm in love with you anymore." The words hit like a physical blow. "Oh, I love you. Care about you. You're Hope's father. And I respect the work you're doing. But that in-love feeling, the one that makes you want to build a life with someone, I don't have that anymore. Maybe it got destroyed by everything that happened. Maybe it just faded. But it's gone." I nodded slowly, feeling something inside me break. "Are you seeing someone else?" "No. God, no. I'm barely surviving being a single mom while you work on yourself." She smiled sadly. "But I needed you to know the truth. Because I've been letting you think that if you just fix yourself enough, we can go back to how things were. And that's not fair to either of us. So this is it? We're really over. I think we've been over for a while. We just didn't want to admit it." We stood there in the park, Hope sleeping peacefully in her stroller, completely unaware that her parents were ending their marriage. "I'm sorry," I said, "for everything. For not being who you needed. For letting my fear destroy what we had. I'm sorry too, for not being honest sooner. For letting you hope when I'd already let go." That night, I signed the lease on a one-bedroom apartment. The separation became permanent. Sarah filed for divorce 6 months later, citing irreconcilable differences. We worked out custody, shared 50-50. We were both committed to being good co-parents, even if we couldn't be partners. A year after our divorce was finalized, I ran into Sarah at a coffee shop. She was with someone, a woman actually, which surprised me. They were holding hands. "David," Sarah said, standing up, "this is Maya. Maya, this is Hope's father, David." Maya smiled warmly and shook my hand. They sat back down, and I noticed how relaxed Sarah looked, happier than I'd seen her in years. "You look good," I told her honestly. "Thanks. I feel good. We should get coffee sometime. Actually catch up, not just exchange custody schedules." "I'd like that." As I left the coffee shop, I felt relief. Not happiness exactly, but acceptance. Sarah had moved on, was building a life that worked for her. And Hope was thriving, splitting time between two homes where she was loved. I was dating too casually, nothing serious. Still in therapy. Still working on my issues. Still learning to trust without needing to control. The story I told myself that Tuesday afternoon, about betrayal and affairs and being the victim, had been wrong in ways I couldn't have imagined. The real betrayal was never Sarah's. It was mine. Not through infidelity, but through the corrosive power of mistrust. I'd been so afraid of being abandoned that I'd pushed away the person I loved most. Had investigated instead of communicated. Had chosen suspicion over faith. And in the end, my fear had manifested exactly what I'd been afraid of. I'd lost her. But standing there, watching Sarah laugh with her new partner through the coffee shop window, I realized something else. Maybe loss wasn't the tragedy I'd thought it would be. Maybe sometimes letting go was the kindest thing you could do. For both of you, love isn't always enough. Trust matters. Honesty matters. Being willing to be vulnerable matters. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is admit when it's not working and walk away with grace. I picked Hope up from Sarah's that evening. My daughter ran to me with open arms, chattering about her day. As I buckled her into her car seat, she looked up at me with those wide, innocent eyes. "Daddy, why don't you and Mommy live together anymore?" It was a question she'd asked before, but tonight, I finally had an answer that felt true. Because sometimes people love each other but aren't good for each other. And it's better to have two happy homes than one sad one. "Are you happy, Daddy?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "I'm getting there, sweetheart. I'm getting there." And I was, slowly, painfully, but genuinely, learning to be alone without being afraid. Learning to trust without needing proof. Learning that the only person I could really control was myself. That Tuesday afternoon felt like a lifetime ago. The man who'd stood in that doorway, hearing his wife say she hated him, and immediately making it about himself. That man was gone. In his place was someone more humble, more aware of his own capacity for harm. I couldn't change the past. Couldn't undo the damage I'd done. But I could be better for Hope. Could teach her, by example, what healthy relationships looked like. What real trust meant. And maybe, someday, I'd find someone I could build that with. Someone I could trust without investigating. Someone who could trust me without fear. But first, I had to finish becoming someone worthy of that trust. As I drove home with Hope singing in the back seat, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not for reconciliation with Sarah, that ship had sailed and that was okay. But hope that the work I was doing mattered. That change was possible. That the mistakes I'd made didn't have to define me forever. The glass between us, Sarah and me, had been made of broken trust. We tried to glue it back together. But some things, once shattered, can't be fully repaired. But maybe that was okay. Maybe some relationships are meant to teach us, not last forever. Maybe some love stories end so better ones can begin. I glanced at Hope in the rearview mirror, her eyes already drooping with sleep. She was my better story, my reason to be better, and that was enough.
Wow. That was an incredibly intense and emotional story. Thank you for trusting us and sharing such a personal and painful experience with such honesty. Your journey, from betrayal, humiliation, and heartbreak, to reclaiming your life and dignity, is truly powerful, and I know it will resonate with many of our viewers who have faced similar struggles. To everyone watching, this story is a reminder of the strength we all have inside us, even in the darkest moments. If Michael's story moved you, made you think, or helped you reflect on your own life, I encourage you to leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your experiences, or simply your support. It all matters. And don't forget to subscribe to When She Broke Us for more raw, real, and unfiltered stories of betrayal, resilience, and personal growth. Every story here reminds us that even through pain, there's a way to reclaim our power and dignity. Thank you for watching, and remember, your strength is greater than any betrayal, and your voice deserves to be heard.